Why America's the next empire to fall. What do y'all think, bro? In the next 100 years, is America fried, bro? I don't want it to be fried, bro. I live here. Bro, I doubt it. I'm gonna be real, y'all. I'm gonna be real. As long as America just keeps like military dominance, basically every other country's cooked. Cause like all you need, bro, is military dominance. And then like maybe economically, there's a chance if, you know, if everything's just full. If everybody leaves, bro, and then they don't allow people in because they don't want any more immigrants, then yeah, probably. America's still projected to be top 3 economies. Oh no, we're talking about like number 1. We'll still be number 1. I'm pretty sure that's what like they mean by empire, right? Canada not gonna fall. Yeah, Canada's gonna go from top. What is Canada's GDP? 10? Might as well become a 51st state. Make yourself 5. Oh man, that's funny, bro. 10. Man, y'all getting beaten by hella countries, bro. Bro, Cali's GDP is probably higher than motherfucking Canada, nigga. Hold up. Yeah, pack it up, bro. 4.1 trillion. Cali's technically the 4th highest GDP. Texas is too. Let me see Texas. Y'all getting beat by Texas too. You know, that's the thing I like, bro. I feel like as Americans, we hate each other for political beliefs, whatnot, everything else. But like, we could always like flex on other countries. When we have to, bro. When we have to get together, bro. Whenever we see a UK talk shit about us, we can flex. You know what I'm saying? Cali's so rich they got 12% poverty rate. A whole damn city richer than Canada. NYC GDP too. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Like the big states, yeah, Florida, NYC are gonna be higher than like a majority of countries. Let's see this.
According to the congressional budget, U.S. debt is now projected to increase by 63% within the next decade.
Yo, 35 trillion is fried, bro. Why do we act like we're ever paying this off, bro? Just make this 100 trillion. Dude, hear me out. The national debt is 35 trillion. We're obviously never gonna pay it off. So why not right now invest in a bunch of different shit, help people, infrastructure, different things, and then we never pay it off and we move on. Who's gonna get us, bro? Is somebody gonna do something? America is the strongest country in the world, bro. You're not doing anything.
Becoming the highest recorded debt in all of human history. And as the dollar has lost roughly 90% of its purchasing power, the top 1% alone now hold more wealth than America's entire working class. Raising the question, how long can a nation...
I feel like that would be the main way. I'm gonna be real, bro. The main way America, I feel like, would be cooked is greed. Like, there was always greed in America and because obviously, you know, capitalism causes that, but that's bound to happen. But like, dude, the amount of greed has been insane, bro. It just gets worse and worse every year.
And survive as it continuously bankrupts its own people. While America may not fully resemble the empires of the past, as it lacks direct control over other nations and is not ruled by a single emperor, the global reach of its unmatched military power, economic dominance, and
not ruled by a single emperor, not for long. I'm kidding. Hopefully.
Influence hidden behind the invisible thumb of the dollar has placed the United States on the same inevitable trajectory that has defined every superpower throughout history, most notably seen in the internal decay that marked the fall of Rome. Following decades of military conflict, political divide, and immense wealth inequality that led to the collapse of the Roman Republic, Emperor Augustus ushered in a period of extraordinary peace and economic stability, where under his rule, he redistributed wealth by using his own money to purchase land for veterans, increased taxes on Rome's elites to fund one of the...
Yo, could you imagine a fucking president doing that? Let alone Trump, nigga. Imagine him being like, you know what? With my billions of dollars and the money I've made, let me go ahead and help those less fortunate. Hey guys, Tom NFG here. Did you know only half of you guys are subscribed and even less of you guys have noties on? I hate to be a burden, but you know, I really appreciate it if you hit that sub button and the little bell next to it, you know? It doesn't take long. I know you can get mixed up in the algorithm and everything. But yeah, also tune into the streams, you know? We have a lot of fun over there, I'm telling you. We have a lot of parties going on over there. Yeah, that's it, bye. Damn. Top 5 things, bro, you will never hear from a motherfucker anybody in political position, bro.
His pension systems restored civic pride by employing tens of thousands of Romans to famously transform Rome from a city of brick into one of marble, and provided millions of Romans grain to sustain their families, emphasizing how prosperity is rooted in long-term investment and public stability. However, following Rome's catastrophic defeat at the Battle of Teutoburg Forest, the first structural cracks in the empire's foundation began to emerge, as it profoundly altered how Roman citizens perceived their own strength and the true intentions of their power, signaling just how damaging disastrous campaigns of control and influence can be on decades of prosperity. Following the death of Augustus, Emperor Tiberius adopted a more conservative ideology by significantly reducing government spending, despite the Roman economy.
Damn, so they really had like political parties back then too. Well, probably they didn't go by political party, but like they had people that want to cut taxes and then people that wanted to help people, or like social programs and shit.
Dependence on state intervention, reigniting widespread inequality, unemployment, and crumbling infrastructure. But the most defining moment of his reign came after he demanded creditors to invest heavily in Italian land, which sparked a massive surge in credit, drove interest rates higher, inflated a real estate bubble, and ultimately collapsed Rome's housing market, where this fallout also triggered defaults and closures throughout Rome's largest financial institutions, bringing wealthy families to ruin, paralyzing trade, driving up unemployment, and eventually forcing Tiberius into a massive no-interest bailout to rescue the banks and elite creditors, revealing how the cost of concentrated wealth and over-leveraged economies ultimately fall on the public. And while the empire eventually recovered, this moment marked the—
Bro, when is the moment like debt hits us and like everybody's just cooked? It's crazy how it's just random day. Like one day randomly, bro, debt could just like become a problem and people are like, yo, we need this debt now. If we don't pay it off, and then everything collapses. Tommy, if you travel back to the Roman Empire, would you crack? Like a Roman girl? Yeah, probably.
The ignition of a slow compounding decay that would define the fall of Rome. The centuries that followed were plagued by excessive spending, hedonistic political leaders, unprecedented currency debasement, a lack of internal investment, outsourced labor, endless war, immense wealth inequality, and a slow erosion of moral fabric, where after periods of severe—
Yeah, I was about to say, wasn't all like the Roman top people in positions there like fucking little boys, bro? That's why Rome fell. Or was that Greece? It was Rome, right? That they were doing all that freak shit?
economic collapse or civil war, a new leader would emerge, promising Res Publica Restuta, to restore Rome to its former greatness. Emperor Severus, for example—
Restore Rome to its former greatness. So you tell me right now they had a make Rome great again? Bro, history really does repeat itself. MRGA.
ironically minted coins bearing the title Restutor Urbis, or restorer of the city, despite devaluing Rome's currency even further by flooding the markets with the newly minted coinage and accelerating inflation, where the Roman poet Juvenal would later summarize Rome's internal decay, writing, "If the old emperor had been surreptitiously smothered, the same crowd in the moment would have hailed their new Augustus. They shed their sense of responsibility long ago, when they lost their votes and the bribes. The mob that used to grant power, high office, the legions, everything, curtails its desires and reveals its anxieties for two things only: bread and circuses. For if you give them food and entertainment, they will never revolt." And while Rome believed each crisis—
That's low-key facts, I'm not gonna lie. Now, y'all, the last thing any government wants the people to know is, like, if they come together, bro, they could take it down. Like, imagine in America, people put all shit aside, and they were like, you know what? Fuck my political beliefs, fuck everything. It's basically, it's rich versus poor. 99 or, like, however, like, 70% of the wealth is by, like, the top 1%. Imagine everybody did that. And they were like, you know what? Nah, let's come together and take these niggas down or whatever, take the system down. Then the government's like, shit, we're fucked. There's nothing they can do, bro. So you know what you get? You get Labubu. You get Machu Dubai chocolate Labubu crumble cookie. And then your ass never thinks of it again. You get brain rot. You get skibbity toilet. Now really think, bro, all those things are CIA psyops and FBI psyops. They don't want you to know, bro. We come together, put everything aside, bro. It's bottom versus top.
this was only temporary. Every bailout, every short-term fix, and every self-announced political savior only pushed the empire further down a path it could never return from, a pattern that would later re-emerge in the rise of the United States. Since officially becoming the world's leading superpower in 1945, America's forward-thinking industrial investments, combined with being the only major power not forced to rebuild after the war, ushered in a period of immense prosperity, but with a growing appetite—
Bro, I think the thing that's so funny, bro, is like, why do older generations never take into account the reason why, like, America was so strong back then or whatever, why America was so great back then, was because, like, niggas was getting taxed 90% of their income. That's literally why, bro. Bro, if the billionaires nowadays, bro, got taxed how much they were getting back then, bro, homelessness would be at damn near like a no level, bro. There'd be almost nobody fucking homeless, bro. There'd be like no kids starving or anything like that. Like, dude, you can search it up, bro. They got taxed at 90%, bro. The top bracket. Obviously, the top people that made the most money. 90%, bro.
for endless war,
They were just like, nah, what? It was just off of my hard work. Yeah, all right, bro.
implicit control, the United States created a perfect condition for a new ideology to flourish, one that slowly shifted power away from the people and into the hands of the corporations and governmental institutions, where as a result, we abandoned the accountability once demanded by leaders like JFK, or the moral warnings of Martin Luther King Jr.
And I submit that if we can spend $35 billion a year to fight an ill-considered war in Vietnam and $20 billion to put a man on the moon, our nation can spend billions of dollars to put God's children on their own 2 feet right here on earth.
Instead, we placed our trust into slogans, most notably Ronald Reagan's 1980 campaign, "Let's make America great again," forcing the nation to live
MLK to go, by the way, not Reagan. But
in a state of endless remembrance rather than deliberate planning, effectively selling out.
Now, it is really crazy though, y'all. Like, imagine all of those fucking wars we had, like, for no fucking reason, like the Vietnam War and all of the wars and shit. Bro, imagine if that was money spent here. Yo, niggas will be doing good, but it all got wasted, and now we're cooked.
Future generations in pursuit of a ghost from the past. And while history may not repeat itself, it often rhymes, with the United States almost perfectly replicating the key events of the early Roman Empire. However, a substantial differentiator lies in the simple fact that despite Rome severely debasing its currency, it remains largely tied to tangible value. When Augustus transitioned Rome from a republic and into an empire, the denarius contained roughly 98% of silver, where it took nearly 300
I wonder how they made coin. Well, okay, I know how they made coins back then, but how did they like mass produce it the way they did? Like, they don't have like the machines we have where it's like very easy now.
years for it to fall to just 0.5%, where since the US removed the dollar from gold with the collapse of the Bretton Woods Agreement in 1971, the dollar has lost 88% of its purchasing power and roughly 99%.
Wait, what? 1940, US dollar becomes the world's reserve currency. So a dollar was worth $14. That was like the world value, and it was even more back in the 20s. $26. And it dropped down to $1. Bro, that's why the McChicken's like $5 now, bro.
Of its value when compared to gold, forcing the nation to enter the highest levels of debt in human history, backed by a currency rooted entirely in trust. A trust that is now deteriorating at an unprecedented rate as the country continues to march towards moral bankruptcy. And while Rome may offer the most iconic warning, it's the British Empire that most clearly parallels the structural consequences of outsourcing domestic strength in pursuit of global control. After becoming the first nation in history to undergo large-scale industrialization in the 18th century, producing over 2/3 of the world's coal, half of its iron, and 40% of its steel, Britain used this economic dominance and its unmatched naval power to construct undersea cables for a global telegraphic network, opening its financial markets to easier flows of foreign capital. For between 1865 and 1914, British investors poured as much money into the infrastructure of Africa, Asia, and Latin America as they did into the United Kingdom itself, resulting in overseas ventures consistently delivering higher returns than domestic enterprises, allowing Britain's elite to profit immensely, while the working class experienced little to no upward mobility. Where William Kennedy of the London School of Economics estimated that redirecting even a fraction of Britain's foreign investment back into domestic manufacturing could have increased national income by 25 to 50%, potentially creating the kind of middle-class growth the United States experienced after World War II. But instead, as financial institutions and overseas profits were prioritized, local industries decayed, wages stagnated, and working-class neighborhoods across northern England fell into long-term decline. And while Britain poured its...
I think the craziest stat, though, the minimum wage hasn't been changed since, like, I think, like, 2007, bro. Wait, when was the last time the minimum wage was changed? Let me search it up. 2009. Imagine making $7.25, bro, nowadays. Bro, that is so crazy. There is no excuse. Obviously, there's like basically no jobs paying that. There still will be jobs paying $7.25 though out there. But I couldn't even imagine, bro, trying to pay a nigga that. Okay, in the 90s, it was $4.25. But back then, nigga, with $4.25 an hour, bro, like how much was a fucking McDonald's meal? Like maybe $1 or some shit? It's basically, if you make $7.25, bro, McDonald's meal is what? Let's say nowadays, like, I don't know, like $12. You're gonna have to work like an hour and a half for a McDonald's meal.
Limited domestic resources into defending a sprawling empire, the United States, benefiting from geographic insulation and cultural isolationism, strengthened its industrial base and delayed entry into global conflicts, where 2 world wars not only drained Britain's treasury, but physically devastated its already limited manufacturing core, further reducing its capacity for post-war recovery. And as industrial towns collapsed under privatization, foreign competition, and cultural neglect, Britain fundamentally shifted towards a service-based economy, handing the keys of industrial dominance to America and signaling the long-term consequences of an empire that abandons its working class. As global power shifted in the post-war era, it was the American factory worker who became the symbol of national strength. From Detroit's factories producing over 60% of the world's automobiles, to Pennsylvania mills outproducing Germany and Japan combined, blue-collar labor...
This one people want back, bro. Dude, I'm letting you know right now, bro, anybody who's like, yeah, we're gonna bring, I guess, like, this back to America, them niggas is not working those jobs, bro. Ain't nobody in America nowadays want to work a fucking factory job other than the people that really have no other choice. They're straight up not gonna work these fucking jobs.
Powered the U.S. economy and built the infrastructure that defined American ingenuity. But in the pursuit of containing communism, the Korean War redirected billions of dollars in special procurement contracts to Japan, turning it into a supply base for U.S. forces and jump-starting its industrial recovery. And rather than reinforcing its own industrial foundation, Cold War tensions and the growing obsession with corporate cost-cutting led the United States to gradually abandon it, trading national resilience for geopolitical leverage and corporate efficiency, while Japan emerged as the world's second-largest free market economy by 1968. And by the late 1970s, following President Jimmy Carter's reduction of tariffs on Chinese imports, American companies had an even greater incentive to source from or produce overseas, shifting the national mentality that American jobs were no longer foundational assets, but disposable costs to be minimized. And as worsening economic inequality and civil divide began tearing apart the nation, Reagan's promise of restoring America to its former greatness created the perception of change, despite increased government debt, a total reduction of social safety nets, and more than 1.6 million American jobs being outsourced overseas, placing even further downward pressure on domestic job quality. And after decades of industrial decline, the 1990s marked the most substantial transformation of the post-war economic structure under President Bill Clinton, where trade agreements like NAFTA and the establishment of permanent normal trade relations with China fundamentally opened U.S. markets to aggressive import competition, where between 1994 and 2001, over 879,000 American jobs were officially certified as lost to direct trade competition under the U.S. government's trade.
Holy shit. God damn, cause of displacement of production that supported 879,000 jobs. Most of these lost jobs were high-wage positions in manufacturing industries. God damn. And then after this, bro, they just never came back, dude. It was cooked.
Adjustment assistance program, with some economists estimating that the real number was likely 2 to 3 times higher, gutting areas like Detroit, which fell from one of the wealthiest cities.
Bro, that's the craziest thing, bro. Learning Detroit was wealthy. Bro, nobody nowadays can imagine Detroit as like the fucking city of wealth. You look at Detroit, bro, and they got dollar houses and shit.
In the world, to one of the poorest in the United States, with a poverty rate of 31.5%. And as U.S. further embraced globalization and cost-cutting strategies, it once again followed the same pattern that has defined the collapse of every major empire, where today, China stands as the world's sole manufacturing superpower, accounting for 35% of global gross production, or more than the next 9 largest manufacturers.
Yeah, that's the thing, bro. China's getting at the moment, bro. China literally produces like basically every single fucking product in the world right now. Getting to that point, bro, where they're having everything, bro. I feel like America has like military and then China just has like products and everything else, bro. If the military falls right now in America, which is why I think they always like fucking try to keep it like high as shit, China gonna swoop in, bro.
Combined. And while the
Military
United
spending
States is taking drastic efforts to reignite its industrial base in an attempt to preserve global leadership, it's being forced to do so on top of a corporate infrastructure designed solely to maximize short-term efficiency.
Average factory worker salary in Vietnam, $120 an hour. At least America doesn't use literal slavery though. Yeah, that's fair. We do have laws against that. I mean, people would argue that, but yeah, I would say it's definitely better than like what they got in China.
To maximize short-term efficiency at the lowest possible cost, signaling that while domestic manufacturing is essential to long-term prosperity, it must now operate within the very mindset that dismantled it. And with virtually no internal investment or national job training pipeline, American manufacturing is projected to face more than 2 million unfilled jobs by 2030.
How is it unfilled?
For a gap that could cost as much as $1 trillion annually, all while the U.S. is simultaneously facing an infrastructure disaster. Where according to the 2025 report card for America's infrastructure, if current funding levels remain unchanged, the country will face a $3.7 trillion shortfall by 2030. But if we include dams, levees, hazardous and solid waste systems, parks, and schools.
Oh yeah, because some of the bridges, bro, some of the bridges be old as f. They're like 100 years old. I be forgetting that, bro. I remember seeing a bridge when I was in Maryland, bro, and that shit literally looked like it was made in like 1900. It was like fully wood. I was like, bro, this looks like it could fall anytime. Like, do I even want to walk on this?
That number rises to 4.4 trillion. However, unlike the transition of power from the British Empire, where America was economically and culturally primed to take the mantle, China faces a number of structural challenges, with the first one being that it's already shifting away from manufacturing and towards a service-based economy, as rising labor costs have eroded one of the key advantages that once made China an attractive hub for global production, where simultaneously, its population is declining at an unprecedented rate. As a consequence of the one-child policy, 1 in 4 Chinese citizens will be over the age of 60 by 2030. By 2050,
1 in 4? Nah, they're about to have the problem Japan is having, man. Yo, I feel like, yo, in the future, governments are just gonna develop a thing where like you just spit semen into like a fucking tube, bro, and then we're gonna have lab-grown babies. That's the only way, because they know eventually like people aren't gonna do it. Like, I don't think it's gonna get any better. Same thing with Japan or whatever for birth rates. They're just gonna have like people grown in a tube. Man, imagine the racism if your ass was grown in a tube, bro. They'd be making fun of you for life.
that figure is expected to reach 40%, placing an even greater strain on retirement and healthcare systems than what the United States is projected to face. And when factoring in hidden liabilities, estimates place China's true government debt ratio at 117%, just 7% below that of the United States. And similar to how economists once predicted that Japan would surpass the US by the year 2000, similar forecasts made in 2008 that China would overtake the US by this year have now been pushed to the 2040s, with growing doubt.
Yeah, nigga, y'all suck. Try again, bro.
That it'll actually happen.
It's funny because, like, whenever people think, like, damn, America's gonna fail, like, I have so much confidence in this country, bro, no matter how much time seems, bro, like, niggas always find a way to, like, get on top either way. It doesn't matter how, like, yeah, back then they were saying, like, oh, America's fucked. They're gonna get past, then they found a way to get past that. Oh, now they're saying we're gonna get past. It's probably gonna be another one in the future where it gets fixed. I think people need to come together, though. Right now, the only thing that could take out America, bro, is people being against each other.
But at all, signaling that unless the United States faces a severe economic or global catastrophe, it remains on a trajectory far more reflective of Rome's bread and circuses,
because America
where
owns
collapse
the
no
finish
longer
line.
arrives in the form of burning cities or toppled statues, but through an abandoned workforce, broken trust, and a generation that no longer sees a future worth building. Because throughout American history, the nation has fundamentally relied on outside enemies to inspire internal unity. But as the country has become so ideologically twisted, it's now collapsing inward, where the enemy is anyone who doesn't align with one's personal beliefs.
I feel like really the only way this happens is, let's say tomorrow it turns out that China passed the US economy. Then people are gonna be like, oh fuck, wait, we got passed? Oh yeah, now we gotta fix this. We gotta get together, bro. We can't let this happen. What? We're a team. We're a United States. My bad.
Republican fingers point downward at those deemed responsible for social and economic decay, while Democratic fingers point upward at the elite, blind to the fact that their beloved politicians are also seated at the table of greed, where decades of policy failure and the complete loss of social cohesion have not only bankrupted emerging generations, but their children as well. We prioritize the intricacies of AI and Apple's latest phone release, while nearly 50 million children remain trapped in an education system completely unprepared for the demands of the future, facing lower reading scores than in 1971.
Yo, that's insane, bro.
With just 56% of fourth graders actually performing at grade levels in math. We blame minimum wage for rising prices, despite CEO stock-based compensation soaring
Yo, that is insane. Bro, my only thing, I just seriously don't understand. Let's say you're somebody like Elon, bro. I want to know the reason why to even have that much of a net worth, and not like, I don't know, maybe distribute more to your employees or some different shit. Like, what is the purpose? Because, nigga, at a certain point, bro, if I'm a billionaire, dude, nigga, I'll be cool off $100 million, bro. You know what I'm saying? I don't need a motherfucking 10 billion, 50 billion, 100 billion. Why do I need that? Picture worth more than all of us? Not dead ass, bro. This picture right here is worth more than 70% of America.
1,460%. Hourly wages have grown by just 17.5%. We worship media figures who selectively weaponize data to fit their own narrative, while they avoid the fact that homelessness has surged by 30% in just 3 years, and that childhood poverty has nearly doubled since 2022. Millennials and Gen Z are cast as society's scapegoat.
Hey, if you're complaining that you couldn't buy a house fully, like in the 70s they did after working a year at McDonald's, you're woke. You're a snowflake. You're a fucking snowflake. Pull up your bootstraps.
Despite living through the most unaffordable housing market in American history,
working at Ford,
all while holding just a fraction of the wealth their parents had. And yet we wonder why national pride has collapsed from 85% to 18% in just the last decade, as we continue to...
I think national pride's always going to be fucked. Well, I don't know. It depends on the poll, because the way people feel right now, I feel like it's just currently like which political party is in leading. Right now, if you were to ask, let's say like liberals, how is their national pride in America? It's going to be fucking low, because like they don't like Trump or any of the party or anything that he's doing, which obviously you can hate on shit he's doing. But then let's say another Democrat comes in, it's going to be the same thing for Republicans. You're going to be like, man, I like the country when Trump was here. That's how it's going to be now.
Plunge into endless wars, utter political
neither both sides
filth.
suck.
All while the very fabric of society has been torn apart since 2020.
Y'all forgot they was blowing this nigga's Teslas up, bro. This is why he left the government. Yo, they was really throwing fucking firebombs. Treating this shit like a goddamn GTA lobby, bro. That's why Elon Musk is silent nowadays. Y'all notice that? Some people forgot about like what he did. Not gonna lie, I still remember it, bro. I'm not buying a Tesla. Just because I hate this nigga that much.
Sure to appear as one only defined by greed, disillusionment, and further chaos. And while the public has been trained to remain passive, we've forgotten that what actually made America great was the collective pursuit of a better tomorrow. It was the everyday Americans who chose to stand up for what they believed was right, not through the cowardice of violence, but through the strength of unity, pursuing hope rather than hate. As it wasn't elected officials who ended the working class living in slums, It was Jacob Riis, a photographer who exposed the horrors of tenement housing and how the other half lives, prompting New York to pass a landmark housing reform in 1890. The promise of draining the swamp was fulfilled not by politicians, but by Lincoln Steffens, a journalist who exposed municipal corruption in Tweed days in St. Louis, launching a national muckraking movement in 1902. The reason you were able to actually have a childhood wasn't because of industry or government suddenly finding empathy. It was because of Carmela Tioli, a 13-year-old girl who, despite having her scalp torn off in a cotton machine, still testified before Helen Taft, which ignited a national child labor reform movement.
Bro, that is insane, bro. Yo, these niggas was evil, because what the fuck? They probably said, bye, Carly. I'll see you at work tomorrow. Head ass. Just rub it off and move on. I don't know how to do the transatlantic accent. Oh yeah, they were like, man, it's okay, just move on, little skipper. Come on, we gotta keep working.
In 1912. And the monopolies of the Gilded Age didn't just collapse out of hopeful thinking, they were broken by Ida Tarbell, who spent years exposing John D. Rockefeller's empire, leading to the dissolution of Standard Oil, signaling that while the American empire may live on as a global shell company, for it to actually become great again, it must be rebuilt in the service of future generations, demanding that we find hope in one another and use whatever strength we have left to redefine what it truly means to be an American. And while I am so unbelievably grateful to be in the position,
I think that's my favorite things too about being American, like seeing when stuff happens, like disasters, people coming together, like help each other. Like I remember when the wildfires was happening and shit in California, and then like the Texas state like sent some aid to California, you know, they made like a statement or something. And like the fact that two states could come together that are completely politically opposite, like let's be completely politically opposite, and they were like, you know what, we're gonna help you out with this, get through it. I'm like, I'm proud of moments like that. But then other than that, like it's like one good thing and then just like just back to fighting.
To receive such kind and loving and thoughtful comments from each and every one of you, it is important that we recognize that despite this being a one-man operation, anytime I am asked about how is the channel doing, I always respond with we. And while I am the one that is sitting in front of the camera, writing the scripts, doing the research, editing the videos, I fundamentally believe that you are a part of this journey too, that we are in this pursuit of a better tomorrow together. I don't see the point of having success by myself, or that this is some heroic journey on my part. I am no different than you. I get nervous before each one of my videos. I have to go through this whole process.
Now we're all different. We must all hate each other. And yeah, no, I'm just playing. I think the video's about done though. But yeah, that was interesting. I don't know. I'm gonna be real. I don't think America's gonna fall in the next 100 years or get passed or something like that. If it stays the same and, you know, we don't come together, eventually it's gonna reach a point where we're gonna be like, all right, bro. Like, I feel like in America when 9/11 happened, everybody came together and they're like, all right, we gotta like figure like what the we're gonna do. Like moments like that. Yeah, anyways. If you're watching on the tube, make sure to join the Discord or watch the streams.
Subscribe to Tommy NFG.